welcome back to Well, That's Interesting, the oh wow, you really need to hear this edition. My friends, it's Pride Month, and I'm not going to let it slide without dropping a multicolored queer bomb on you to celebrate. I've got the perfect gift. It's a limited podcast series called A Field Guide to Gay Animals, and it's just as cheeky, contemplative, curious, and raunchy as it sounds. It's my honor to share episode 1, in which hosts and animal enthusiasts Owen Ever and Lane Kaplan-Levinson join a 200-year-old gay tortoise and explore the history of scientific research into gay animals. From queer swans to self-pleasuring elephants to amorous giraffes, they learn how scientists have been understanding and misunderstanding queerness in nature for centuries. And they introduce a bold 1990s researcher who helped us see nature for what it is, queer as fuck. You can find A Field Guide to Gay Animals wherever you do podcasts, so be sure to subscribe and tell them that I sent you. And as per usual, a brand new extraordinary episode of Well, That's Interesting will drop this Thursday, so come on back. In the meantime, enjoy A Field Guide to Gay Animals.
Hey everyone, just a quick content advisory. This show contains detailed discussions of sexuality in human animals and animals. Enjoy!
Sparrows and Sirens. Classic. Name a more iconic duo.
So I'm on my way. I'm at 59th Street, but they just announced delays. I don't know how long it's going to be, so I am running a little bit late, but I'll be there as soon as I can.
Typical. The park waits for no one. For the enjoyment of all who love the ramble. Thank you. I do. Okay, I see you. Oh, he's pretty. Love the red. Bold choice.
Owen!
Shh. Come here.
What? What'd I miss?
Look. You see right up there? It's a woodpecker.
Where?
Right up there. It's a red-bellied woodpecker, but it has a red head.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I love woodpeckers.
I know. Hi, good morning.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
How are you, Lane? How was the train?
Listen, it was real. It was really delayed.
It's actual-
We had to get off the train. We had to get on another train. This is just my luck, you know. But now we're
This
here.
way. Now we're here. Oh, it feels so good to be here.
Owen, why did you want to specifically meet in the Ramble? I mean, aside from that, it's gorgeous in here.
It's gorgeous. Well, it's a sacred space. It's a place of cruising and birding and cruising for birds.
So when I found you in here, you were cruising for birds, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Definitely. I mean, this is our gay legacy. This is our place of power. Hey, did you hear that?
The goose?
Yeah, it was a goose. It was a Canada goose.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up real fast.
Where? And so you brought Sibley?
Yeah, but no, I'm gonna look it up in biological exuberance.
Oh, biological exuberance. You brought that? That book is huge. Are you Mary Poppins?
Oh, I brought it with me birding because I wanted to know about how gay geese are.
Okay, how gay is the Canada goose?
Let's see. Courtship behavior in the form of head dipping is frequently a part of such bonds. And this display dipping its head deep into the water and then lifting it back up. Wow, in Canada, geese, 12% of pairs in some populations are homosexual.
Not too shabby.
Do you hear them?
They're like, it's more like 20.
Yeah, they're like, we are gay geese.
And like you always say to me, it made you realize that we're not the only ones having gay sex in the bush.
We're not the only ones having gay sex in the bushes. Absolutely not.
Hello, I'm Owen Ever.
I'm Lane Kaplan Levinson, and from Double Double, this is a field guide to gay animals, a podcast about queerness in the natural
Nature
world.
is gay as fuck. In this series, we'll be traversing the animal queendom, field guide style.
Because believe it or not, same-sex sexual behavior, affection, courtship has been documented in over 1,500 species.
And counting.
We'll be getting into all that and trying to understand why something so abundant, universal, and irrefutable is so often dismissed, and forgotten.
Speaking of gay animals, hello, Lane Kaplan Levinson, friend and co-host extraordinaire.
Hello, Owen Ever, friend, co-host, and fellow birder.
LGBT, let's go birding together.
We're here, we're queer, and if we had it our way, we'd lay in the grass all day. But instead, we're making a podcast about it.
And that's why I invited you to join me in the ramble in Central Park.
To go cruising.
For birds.
Right. And reading that brick of a book you had with you that told us that at least 12% of geese are gay.
Yes, 12 to 18%. And that's just one of hundreds of animals in this book, which I want to take a moment to introduce. Because, well, obviously it's important to me, but it's also important to all the stories in this series. It's called Biological Exuberance, Animal Homosexuality and Natural Diversity, published in 1999 and written by Bruce Bagamill.
Biological exuberance, right. And the cool thing is, I didn't know this book existed until you introduced it to me. And that's kind of the thing with this book, right? People either know nothing about it or they're completely obsessed with it and then have to share it.
Right, totally. It's basically got cult classic status. It's the kind of book that gets quietly passed around, showing up on, a queer's bedside table between Wild Fermentation and The Ethical Slut, you know what I mean?
I definitely do.
Yeah, I was given this book, over a decade ago now, soon after I moved to New Orleans. My then boyfriend and I were given it maybe because we had so many hens and believed them all to be lesbians.
Well, speaking of lesbians, is that a hedgehog with its nose?
Up another hedgehog's ass? Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, field guide merch idea number 57.
And that's just one of literally hundreds of the incredibly evocative and charming illustrations in this book, which document same-sex sexual behavior in a grand total of 450 species. And it's not like Bruce, the author, was able to create this catalog by taking a walk in the park or picking up a zoo brochure. No. Much more tedious. He consulted the historic record, sifting through peer-reviewed scientific research paper after peer-reviewed scientific research paper after long-winded observation report. I mean, daunting stuff.
Daunting, and yet it's amazing all these studies existed, because we weren't taught any of this stuff in school. Instead, it was survival of the fittest, reproduction as the be-all, end-all. I wasn't even taught about sexual and gender diversity in humans, which is why I had my own little, or big, journey with all this. And I definitely didn't learn about queerness in animals.
No, they did not teach us that. But what if they had? Biological Exuberance is more than an exquisitely illustrated index of 450 species. It's also a theory, which in short states that sexual diversity, what we're calling queerness, is a result of abundance. And abundance is the orientation of nature, so therefore, queerness is part of nature.
We're going to explore and celebrate that theory. This is a field guide for getting joyously lost in questions like, if queerness is so abundant in nature, why don't more people know about that?
What have those trying to bring queer animals into the public consciousness been up against? What are queer animals up against?
What lessons can we learn from biological exuberance and from our queer animal kin?
This is our field guide for fucking around and finding out. To start, let's get oriented by moving through a timeline of gay animal history. I mean, who doesn't love a trip through the annals, am I right?
Yes, I love it. Okay, a gay animal overview type deal that runs through discoveries of gay animals over the past 200 years.
So many gay animal discoveries to share. But Lane, I gotta warn you, many of these Western scientists who observed animal homosexuality did not like what they saw. Sadly, homophobia comes as no surprise, so we'll also be navigating that together, and we'll do it with humor.
Got it. Thank you, Owen. And because this is a field guide, we're going to meet an animal, of course, the oldest living homosexual on the planet.
A 200-year-old giant tortoise.
So let's get this show on the road. We've got 200 years, 2 stories, 1 timeline. The slow and steady pace of a giant tortoise just doing its thing.
And the urgent, neurotic, hubristic pace
My
of
mother.
humans. Of scientific discovery.
Oh my God, the tortoise and the hare.
The tortoise and the hare, exactly.
Animal queendom versus Western science.
Gay animals being gay versus humans observing them.
So,
Let the fabled race begin. Here, on the remote shore of the Seychelles Islands, a small miracle is about to occur. The hatching of an Aerobrachylis giant tortoise. This is the sound of a gay being born.
oh my God, Owen, you sound like if Gaga and Attenborough had a baby.
Too kind.
Anytime.
So it's about 1832, and our star is born.
1832 gay time.
Exactly. Gay people never reveal their actual age.
Well, we say around 1832, but maybe it was 1810, who knows?
This is Joe Hollins.
I have been extraordinarily lucky and privileged as a vet to be looking after the oldest known living land animal in the world,
a Seychelles giant tortoise.
which is one of what was considered to be an extinct species from the Indian Ocean. There are very few Seychelles giant tortoises left in the world.
These are a rare breed. They defy extinction and stick around for a long time. Like we were saying, our guy was born around 1832, and for the first 50 years of his life, he lives what is essentially, for him, his childhood.
And in that time, he does what any rare Seychelles giant tortoise would do. Eat,
Stretch,
Lay in the grass,
probably sunbathe,
stay moisturized, learn to thermoregulate,
graze a bit more.
nap, play hide and go seek.
and time trods on into adolescence. He has fun in the sun, gets laid in the shade.
And who knows what else? Gay teenage tortoises keep a low profile. You know who wasn't keeping a low profile around this exact same time?
I will describe the habits of the tortoise.
Charles Darwin.
Drumroll, fanfare, cannon fire. Our story of humans making discoveries has begun. Okay, 1832, the same year our tortoise is born. What the hell is Dear Darwin up to?
Great question. He's definitely on a quest for knowledge.
Typical Darwin.
Around this time, he's out at sea on the HMS Beagle and lands on the Cape Verde Islands.
Hold on, wait. I have ancestors from there.
Oh my God, you're related to Darwin.
No. Strong factual and
Oh
accuracy.
my God, it's so true. I can see it now that I'm looking at you. Okay. Well, regardless, maybe your relatives were hanging with Darwin when he landed there in 1832. But he didn't stick around too long. From there, he sailed across the Atlantic to survey the entire east coast of South America.
Okay, so has he written Origin of Species yet?
No, that's in 1859 after his next voyage to the Galapagos Islands.
Damn, so our tortoise is older than the theory of evolution. I'm just gonna leave that thought lingering in the air for a moment.
In 1882, Jonathan was actually brought to St. Helena Island along with 3 other tortoises and was given as an act of diplomacy to the then governor, Hudson Janish.
Aw, given name Jonathan. Beautiful name for a 50-year-old baby boy.
Given name because some governor of St. Helena named our rare Seychelles giant tortoise Jonathan.
In about 1886, Jonathan's photo was taken for the first time.
Oh my god. Wow, so handsome.
And he's like on a date with another tortoise, it looks
It
like.
looks like it. With not 1, not 2, but 4 chaperones.
Yeah. There's another tortoise in the picture that he's kind of like laying across from. And then there's 4 men standing over them, all in hats. I think 3 are workers, maybe?
1 is a colonial policeman, so that's a given. And of the 3 other figures, 2 look like gardeners. 1 is standing on a spade, and they're wearing typical outdoor clothes.
And then there's Jonathan, sprawled out before them, seemingly disinterested in the men's attention.
To describe Jonathan, it's quite difficult, but what you have to imagine is an armor-plated reptile. They have 4 stout legs, which really are a bit like elephant legs. The head, though, again, is scaled, very hard and bony, and the beak, the mouth, is composed of keratin, of horn, and is sharp, so it can slice into fruit and vegetables or scythe off the grass. This whole animal will weigh something like 200 kilos, so it's a huge tortoise.
Meanwhile, across the ocean,
The year 1892. The place, lecture at the Medical Society of Virginia. The topic, crimes of sexuality.
Only a few days ago, to escape a shower, I took refuge in the Elephant House in the Washington Zoological Gardens, where are confined the 2 male elephants, Dunk and Gold Dust.
So said Dr. Irving C. Ross, moralist fuckwit.
we fact-checked that.
To my astonishment, they entwined their proboscis together in a caressing way. Each had simultaneous erection of the penis, and the act was finished by one animal opening and allowing the other to tickle the roof of his mouth with his proboscis.
A few years later in France, at an evening meeting of the Société Etymologique, 2 famed entomologists,
In hats. It's always hats with these men.
2 behatted entomologists, caused quite a stir with their recitation of a paper titled Sexual Perversion in Male Beetles, in which they described homosexual cockchafer couplings with the scandalous hypothesis that some male cockchafers desire, or even, dare I say it, prefer anal penetration.
Which was harder for them, the preference for anal or the fact that they're called cockchafers?
Well, for what it's worth, they're also known as doodlebugs.
Yeah, I don't know if that helps. I'm sure it sounds better in French, though.
Le doodlebug.
A Bird in a Gilded Cage, sung by Mr. Steve Porter for Columbia Phonograph Company of New York and London.
And just like that, one century ends and another begins.
By 1900, Steve Porter's A Bird in a Gilded Cage is topping the music charts. Known homosexual Oscar Wilde has been jailed for gross indecency. Gay animals are being gay animals, and scholarly men are losing their hats about it.
A bird in a gilded cage.
What is a day in the life of Jonathan like? What is he doing over the course of the day?
Quite a dozy affair, really. Wake up, stretch, climb out of whatever he's buried himself into, and go off roaming. Apparently, when the orchard was ripe and the pears and windfalls were lying on the ground, he would smell them. He would go all the way up there and raid the orchard for the windfalls, believe it or not. And then he'd go off again and graze a bit more. As the day goes by, he would probably sunbathe. Then if it gets too hot, he would take himself off into the shade. But certainly by evening, usually 4 or 5 in the evening, he'll start thinking about putting himself to bed, and he'll find a place in the shrubbery, or he'll go and find one of the big heaps of grass clippings that the gardeners leave and burrow himself into the grass clippings.
It's really like living the life and really just living life.
Yeah, I know. I don't think they can get bored, funny enough.
I'd rather stay in fruit-picking reverie with Jonathan, but let's get back to our story of discovery. Where were we?
Well, so far we've discussed the sex crimes of elephants and the perversions of beetles.
Gotcha. So then, in 1901, while Jonathan was no doubt sunbathing on the shores of St. Helena, the list grew to include the inverted practices of pigeons. Quote, no animal is more depraved, mating between males and still more frequently between females, wrote Havelock Ellis.
Wait, the Havelock Ellis?
Yeah, who wrote the first highly suspect medical text on homosexuality, was in a throuple with Margaret Sanger, loved watching women pee, and psychedelics.
No, and I'm just kidding. I have no fucking idea who this person is.
Well, good, because he was a eugenicist who also disliked pigeons.
His loss.
The birds tuppence a bag.
Okay, Owen, if you like the inverted depravity of pigeons, then you're gonna love the astonishing depravity of penguins.
Okay, yes, that's hot. Adding that to my Grindr profile. Astonishing depravity.
Okay, let me know how that goes for you. Astonishing depravity is how George Murray Levick, famed British Antarctic explorer, described the behavior of Adelie penguins in 1910. Behavior that included frequent homosexual mounting, sexual coercion and solicitation by, quote, hooligan cocks, and even autoerotic stimulation.
Does that mean...
Definitely.
Okay, wow. Not the March of the Penguins I remember.
Definitely not. And there's a reason for that. This guy, George Murray Levick, was so disturbed by these penguins that he literally wrote his field notes in secret code.
Putting it in code so that only he could read it. Interesting.
Yeah, his gay penguin papers remained undiscovered until they were finally decoded and then published in full 100 years after he wrote them in 2012, which, by the way, is 7 years after March of the Penguins came out.
Wow. Well, that explains the dearth of gay sex in the film, which, honestly, could have been fun to hear the esteemed Morgan Freeman narrate. But really, it's frustrating because this is essentially the closeting of gay animals.
Exactly. So scientists are either demeaning these animals and calling them actual slurs, or self-censoring their own research and not publishing at all. This is what was happening leading up to and throughout the first half of the 20th century. Over and over and over again.
Which, when I think about it, it kind of breaks my heart.
I know. Here, maybe this will help. Let's look at this picture of gay swans.
You can just say swans.
Okay. These are some Scottish swans from the 1920s, and it's the first photograph of known homosexual swans.
Aww. I love how they're on opposite sides of the little nest that they've made, clearly post-coital and giving each other the silent
Right?
treatment.
It looks like they fucking hate each other.
Yes. I guess that's how you know they're gay.
So true.
Okay, listen to this. In contrast to the mean girl swans, I give you gay black-crowned night herons.
You can just say black-crowned night herons.
Point taken. In the 1930s, it was discovered that these fellows do a stick ceremony, presenting each other with twigs and displaying their plumes before mounting and mating.
Are you serious? I cannot believe that's real. Honestly, that's the most romantic thing I've ever heard. I'm gonna start collecting sticks.
You know who else likes sticks? Okay, maybe not sticks, but...
Bananas. He's very fond of bananas. Then cucumber he adores, and cucumber's great for lubricating the throat. He's very fond of lettuce hearts and cabbage. And he loves the crunch, I think, as well. It sort of means to him that he's getting something tasty. And occasionally, not in excess, plums and loquats, which grow locally, and guavas, which he also adores.
And with those fruit salads, at some point in the 1930s, Jonathan turns 100.
Happy birthday to our little fruit. The 1940s saw the destruction of Magnus Hirschfeld's Sex Institute, which was a pioneering clinic for queer and trans folks.
R.I.P. Hirschfeld, you would have loved gay animals.
And in 1948, the Kinsey Report concluded that 37% of men have enjoyed homosexual activities at least once.
The Associated Press declares that Kinsey has, quote, dropped an atomic bomb designed to destroy what is left of sex morality in the United States.
Oh, the irony.
Be sure and remember what Bert the Turtle just did, friends, because every one of us must remember to do the same thing.
Because then, in the 1950s, you've got turtles teaching kids atomic bomb survival techniques.
Duck and cover.
You've got the study of gay zebra finches.
And my personal favorite, horny polyamorous giraffes.
Necking involved one male gently rubbing his head or neck against the body of another, or the two males mutually rubbing their trunks and necks together. This often sexually aroused one so that he mounted the other, or even several other males. There seemed to be no jealousy among partners.
Finally, in 1957, Canadian biologist Anne Innes Dagg described animal homosexuality in an inquisitive, observational manner.
I sometimes saw liquid dripping from the tip.
And now, the 60s, Germany. Here's Owen in the role of famed goose expert and Nobel laureate, Konrad Lorenz.
When we separated our oldest gander pair, Max and Kopfschlitz.
Max and Kopfschlitz?
Max and Kopfschlitz, and sent Max to our colony on the Ampersee near Fürstenfeldbruck. After a year of mourning.
Okay, quit your mourning. I just Google image Fürstenfeldbruck and it's stunning.
After a year of mourning, both ganders paired with female geese and bred successfully.
Okay.
But when we fetched Max back, without his wife and children whom we could not catch...
This is tragic.
Kopfschlitz immediately deserted his family and returned to Max. Kopfschlitz's wife and son seemed to understand the situation, and they made furious but unsuccessful attempts to drive Max away.
High goose drama.
At the time of writing, the two ganders are still united, and Kopfschlitz's abandoned wife waddles slowly after them at a measured distance.
At a measured distance. A tale as old as time, really. I see you, old beard. I see you.
Okay, side note about this German guy, Konrad Lorenz.
Please.
So I was flipping through an old issue of the Radical Fairy Digest, and I found a beautiful quote from Lorenz saying, "If you ask whether homosexuality occurs in animals, the answer is yes, in 1,000 different ways."
Wow, amazing. So simply put. I love this guy.
Well, unfortunately, he was not so simple. It was later discovered that Lorenz had been a member of the Nazi Party.
Damn it. Well, fuck him.
Yep. But you know, we still have Jonathan. By the late 1960s, he was about 130 years old and had entered his bad boy era.
In 1969, a St. Helena newspaper called The Reading Eagle reported that Jonathan had become a troublemaker. The report described him making daring escapes from his enclosure and disrupting croquet games by sitting on the balls, which no doubt probably caused quite an issue with what to do next. I don't think that's in the rules. And he was also found to flip over the tennis court beaches. And I don't think that's aggression. I think it's probably just looking for attention.
Yes, Jonathan the agitator throwing the first brick.
The governor then requested that he had some more company, so 2 one-year-old giant tortoises, that's Emma and David, were sent to the island in 1969.
Doesn't sound like a punishment to me. And now the 70s. gay human animals are letting their hair down, proudly marching in the streets.
And fucking in them.
And there seems to be a corresponding increase in gay animal discoveries.
Aberrant sexual behavior in the South African ostrich.
Pelvic thrusting and mounting among walruses.
Mounting in muskox.
Mounting in hopping mice.
Oh, also, homosexuality declassified as a mental disorder in the DSM.
We'll take it.
Lesbian seagulls in Santa Barbara.
Headline reads, "That's California for you." Also observed, gay whale orgies in homosexual societies of big-horned sheep.
Researcher reacts, to conceive of those magnificent beasts as queers? Oh, God.
Moving to the 1980s, hedgehogs, woodpeckers, deer.
The lowering of moral standards among Lepidoptera, aka degenerate gay butterflies.
And the New York Times reports rare cancer seen in 41 homosexuals.
So giant tortoises are quasi-immortal. That's the extraordinary thing. They tend to die from wearing out, not from the conditions that we die from. They just wear themselves out so they can no longer sustain their bodies. When I saw him, he was clearly really on his way out, on the slippery slope. He was thin and he had a crumbly beak, that he was suffering from vitamin, mineral and trace element deficiencies. And I thought the thing to do would be to just supplement his calories by hand feeding him once a month with fruit and vegetables. So he rejuvenated. It was just incredible. He became younger in the way he moved, he put on weight, much more active, and his beak, more importantly, regrew its sharp edge so he could now graze. And I think one of the great successes of feeding him was that his libido came back. So he was seen to have a few goes with Emma, the female tortoise, and she seemed to enjoy it as well. But in fact, he would also have a go with Frederica.
Frederica is another giant tortoise residing on St. Helena. By the time they were introduced in 1991, Jonathan, sadly, hadn't sired any offspring, and in a matchmaking scheme worthy of Bridgerton, Frederica was deemed a suitable mate.
And romance blossomed.
And they started mating on a regular basis. I was going to say rumpy pumpy, but I bet you don't know what that means, do you?
Please say rumpy pumpy.
Please say rumpy pumpy. Use rumpy pumpy in a sentence. But Joe soon made an exciting discovery.
I saw that Frederica was a Fred, a male.
That's right. Fred's sex had been misclassified.
And so Jonathan was indeed enjoying his time with Fred, not Frederica. There was an international interest in this phenomenon, and not least because it was decided that Jonathan was gay. And so in the gay press, he became an icon, which I greatly enjoyed. And I say, all power to Jonathan. It's absolutely natural in the wide world of the many species that we have, that all commonly are bisexual relationships, because there is an erogenous zone. And an erogenous zone certainly it requires stimulation to give pleasure, and how it's done doesn't really matter. If you can improve your quality of life by having a relationship, whether it's same gender or different gender, why not?
So, being mindful, of course, of what HIPAA says you can and can't reveal about tortoise sex lives, exactly what was going on between these two?
So what was going on between Jonathan and Fred was that Jonathan occasionally would ride Fred. He would climb up on top of him. And when they do this, it's quite impressive, actually, because tortoises hiss, and they hiss very loudly. And I know the governor of the time, when Jonathan was most active, said that he could hear Jonathan having sex with Fred at the back of Plantation House. That's how noisy it was. Which might put you off your breakfast, but I could try and imitate it. It's very loud, though.
Please.
Let's see if I got. So it's something like this, I think. It's almost exactly like that, actually. I think I got it.
While Fred and Jonathan are having their honeymoon decade, aka the 90s, far away in a land called Seattle, a passionate gay scientist is combing through hundreds of research papers, compiling thousands of data points, lifting gay animal observations from the margins to create the most compelling document of animal homosexuality to ever be published.
I'm not just finding a mirror of myself, said Bruce Bagamel. I'm finding a mirror of the larger diversity that exists among animals and people.
Quote, I'm a scientist who is gay. I can't separate the two. I wrote this as a scientist, but the implications for humans are enormous.
In 1999, St. Martin's Press published Biological Exuberance, Animal Homosexuality and Natural Diversity. This 751-page beast of a book by Bruce Bagamel not only cataloged an abundantly queer planet, but championed a queer worldview which he describes as, quote, an affirmation of life's vitality and infinite possibilities, a worldview that is at once primordial and futuristic.
In which gender is kaleidoscopic, sexualities are multiple, and the categories of male and female are fluid and transmutable. A world, in short, exactly like the one we inhabit.
And then Bruce disappeared. What we know about Bruce is pretty minimal. He published the book in '99, was a finalist for the Stonewall Book Award, got some good reviews, got some criticisms for sure, did a couple interviews, and then, well, that's all we know.
But this man that we know so little about, I owe so much to. I mean, his book has influenced my decision to be an active participant in nature, in the world around me. Because it is my habitat. It's a homecoming to go into nature, to feel that sense of kinship that is rooted in my queerness, not adjacent to or parallel to my queerness, but like rooted. And he helped me discover that. And look, I'm not naive. I recognize that the desire to know where my gay elders are and what happened to them, and then living with that unknowing is part of my inheritance. But I do want to know, if I can't find Bruce, can I at least find his legacy? Can I find this exuberant world he proposes and lose myself in it?
That's what this field guide is all about. A search for Bruce's legacy and his biologically exuberant world. But you know what, dear Owen?
What, dear Lane?
Even though Bruce's whereabouts are unknown, there's another gay elder who still is around.
I do get quite emotional when I think about how old he is.
Jonathan.
One day he'll die, and I think I will be pretty upset, even though he's had more than his fair share of time on the earth. But he has been around while wars have been waged, while empires have been built and collapsed, including the British Empire. It's quite extraordinary, the development of steam and then electrics, computers, the advances in science, the nuclear bomb even. He's seen kings and queens come and go. Pandemics, of course, the Spanish flu in the 1919, 1918, and now COVID. All of this has passed by.
And recently, so did his 192nd birthday.
They had music, they did a big birthday cake for Jonathan, not that he could eat it, but everybody else could, so they were very happy. So, yeah, I have a great affection for him, and I dread the day that he dies, and I actually hope that he'll see me out, to be honest. And if we're lucky, that may just happen. Perhaps he'll live until he's 250. Well, we can only hope.
His wiki page reads, Jonathan spends his days doing almost everything with his mate, including eating, sleeping, and mating.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Sure does.
On the island of St. Helena, where Napoleon died, lives the oldest known living then creature, tortoise named Jonathan. Hey, I'd like to meet you and hear all the stories you tell.
In our next chapter of A Field Guide to Gay Animals,
These two male walruses are clearly enjoying each other sexually.
I've got a gay rooster named Francois. I have a gay dog, Nuala. She's right here.
Penguins.
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 All three of my female pigs engage in gay behavior.
Penguins.
Penguins.
Penguin.
A Field Guide to Gay Animals is a production of Double Double Podcasts from Canadaland.
If you want to listen to the next episode of this show right now, become a Canadaland supporter. Just go to canadaland.com/join or click the link in your show notes. Your support allows us to keep making this show. Plus, you'll get bonus episodes and every episode of this show early and ad-free.
I'm Owen Ever.
And I'm Lane Kaplan-Levinson.
This episode was hosted, written, and produced by us.
It was also produced by Nathan Harrison, Katie Jane Fernelius, and Aviva Lassard.
Mixing and mastering by Tristan Capacchione and Hannes Brown.
Our executive producer and editor is Julie Shapiro.
Woohoo! Our publisher is Jesse Brown.
Our commissioning producer is Alan Black.
Our artwork is by Tony Wong, featuring original illustrations from Biological Exuberance, courtesy of John Megahan.
Our theme music is Wolves by Hooray for the Riff Raff, courtesy of None Such Records.
This show was recorded at WWNO Studios in New Orleans. They have a great podcast called Sea Change about the environmental issues facing coastal communities. Check it out if you haven't already.
Thanks to Joe Hollins, whose upcoming book is called Vet at the End of the Earth, Adventures with Animals in the South Atlantic. Also thanks to Dylan Hunter, Shannon Flaherty, and Al Tharp for their voiceover work in this episode.
Additional thanks to Xavier Juarez and Patrick Costello. The Field Guide team wants to acknowledge the recent passing of Anne Innes-Dagg, whose pioneering research on giraffes showed us their abundant queerness.
I sometimes saw liquid dripping from the tip.
You can listen to Field Guide early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime.
And if you like our show and want the world to know about it, please follow, rate, and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It really does make a difference.
It really does. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Islands of St. Helena, where Napoleon died, lives the world's oldest living land creature, a tortoise named Jonathan. Yeah, I'd like to meet ya and hear all the stories you tell.
That's so good. Oh my God.